Okay, in this video we're going to learn about two different things, biological organization and then also the transfer of information. We'll start with biological organization. The objective, you can read it, says to construct a hierarchy of biological organization including levels, characteristics of individual organisms and levels characteristic of ecological systems. And you'll see what that means. It's pretty much a chain or a ladder kind of from going smallest to big. It's pretty simple. It's not too bad. And that kind of leads to one way of studying things, which is reductionism, which you probably remember that question from the test because that was a weird one. Reductionism, it's pretty much breaking things into their smaller parts to study them and to analyze them. The opposite of that would be looking at the whole thing, the whole item, which is sometimes referred to as holistic approach. I won't put that on the test or anything, that's just what it's another name for it. And they do that because there are properties that kind of appear once everything is together that you wouldn't see when you're just looking at the parts. A really good example would be if you took all the parts of a Boeing 747, which is a huge airplane, and put them all spread out, they wouldn't do much. You could learn a lot about the airplane, you could learn a lot about how it might work, but until you put them together in the right order and get them working, it doesn't fly. And being able to fly would be an emergent property that as a holistic thing it can do, but as if you look at the reductionism part, it couldn't do. You would never see all those parts flying unless somebody got mad and threw them really far or something. All right, so that's reductionism and whole. The organisms start out, not all organisms, because we're starting out less than organisms. We're starting out with atoms and molecules. Those are the smallest. Atoms are the smallest that we're going to worry about. When we're doing this part, this right here is chemistry. So when you're taking chemistry next year, this is what you're studying, is the atoms and molecules and how they interact to actually form the cells, which now this is getting into biology. This is what we're going to study a lot of right here. The cells, that's what we're going to do lots and lots of. Cells associate to form tissues, right? You have muscle tissue, lung tissue, liver tissue, all these different types of tissues in our bodies that get enough of them together to form organs. That's why we have livers, muscles, hearts, all these different things. A bunch of organs can function together to form an organ system. Right? Like our pulmonary system, that's all of our lungs and our breathing. Our vascular system is all of our blood and all the heart and the veins and the arteries and all that stuff. Right? Nervous system, all of our nerves put together. That's the system. Organ systems then all get together and make an organism. That's what we are. We are all organisms. So you can see everything is getting bigger as we go. When you get into this area, now you're kind of doing physiology, which we have that class here also, physiology, right? So we do lots of this stuff right here in this class, right? A little tiny bit of the chemistry. Next year you'll do a lot of the chemistry. Physiology in a couple years if you decide to take that class. Continue with this, we go on to populations. So a bunch of organisms of one species living in the same geographical area at the same time. Remember that was on the test. That was a test question. Communities are different populations living and interacting with one another in a particular area. So the community of Escondido has lots of species living. It has humans, dogs, cats, all of them interacting with each other. Coyotes, we have coyotes in our backyard here in Escondido sometimes. An ecosystem is the community, so all of Escondido, all the things living here, all the people, all the animals, all the bugs, all the insects, along with the non-living stuff, along with any streams, creeks, dirt, mountains, right? Anything that's non-living. Trees would not be, they would be part of the ecosystem, but right, they would be a community because they're living, they're not non-living. So trees, plants, those would all be, there would be communities of trees and bushes, but they are not. Well, they are part of the ecosystem, but it's because they're alive, not because they're added to this because of non-living. This stuff is all ecology, which we'll also do quite a bit of in this class, ecology. But we'll do that more later. Let's go to that. The big one altogether is pretty much the Earth. That's all we really kind of concern ourselves with at this level. And the Earth, all the ecosystems of Earth put together are called the biosphere. All right. Oh, and here, ecology. That's what we're studying. Check it out. Pretty cool, huh? Easy stuff. So the basic concept is that things start really small on the chemical level with atoms and molecules, go up to cells, tissues. Let me use this so you can see what I'm talking about. Starts with atoms, molecules, goes up to cells, tissues, organ systems, and then organisms or living things. Then the ecological part gets into a bunch of organisms together to make a population. A bunch of populations make a community. The community plus all the non-living stuff makes an ecosystem, and then all the ecosystems in the world make the biosphere. It should be pretty simple if you study it. There's some good stuff in your book too if you want to read it, or extra stuff, or Wikipedia. I know a lot of your teachers say don't use Wikipedia, but there's actually some information on there. The next one is how information is transferred within and between living things. So that means it's between different living organisms and between the same organisms and within the organism. So your body inside talks to different parts of your body, and that's what the within part kind of is talking about. We'll see in a second. Now, the first type of information transfer is genetic information. Right? It needs to be your genes need to be passed on to your offspring, and that needs to happen in all organisms. And the way it's done is with this molecule called a DNA molecule. Most people got that right on the test, so that should be a really easy question. The DNA molecule is made out of two chains. It's called a double helix. It says helix, but it really should be a double helix because it kind of goes like this, and then there's another one kind of going like that. So it's a double helix. There's a picture later. And each of these chains is made up of a whole bunch of molecules that are, my pen didn't work, I was trying to do a little thing, are all lined up along here. A whole bunch of molecules that are all lined up, and all on this one too. And then they're actually connected to each other through a certain type of bond that we'll learn about later. Those little molecules that are all lined up here are called nucleotides. That's what that is right there. Those are the subunits. It's what DNA is made out of. It's called nucleotides. There are 4 types of nucleotides. Later we'll learn that there's one called A, T, and G, and C. Adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. We can worry about that stuff later. And each group of 3 of these make up the genetic code. It's called a codon. So if we have A, T, G, that's one codon, and that tells it to put one amino acid on there, which we'll talk about that more later. But every 3 nucleotides is part of the genetic code. So each one of these doesn't symbolize anything, but every 3 symbolizes one thing. And there wasn't any questions on the test about that. We'll do a lot more of that when we get to genetics, so don't worry about that. DNA is the hereditary material that transfer. That's the question. Everybody got that right. Blah blah. That's easy stuff. The sequence makes up the genetic code, so it's the order that these nucleotides are written. That part might have had a question on there. So it's the order that they're written, and that is a horrible picture. I don't know why I put that there, but you can kind of see the highlighter on here. You can see here's one strand going this way. Here's the other strand going this way. Right. Here are the there's bases on these nucleotides. Right. These are the bases that are connected. This is the little bond right here that's connecting this base to that base. Right. Here's the little bond that's connecting that base to that base. And then 3 of these in a row would make one code, one sequence to make an appropriate molecule later. Right. One message. It's like one word of the message. Sorry about the picture. I'll try to fix that one of these days. Other ways information is transferred is through chemical and electrical signals. So to get these things, this is one of the things genes do. Genes are the instructions for everything in your body or in every organism. What they actually do is they make proteins. I want that one like this. So each of these genes contains instructions for proteins. So every 3 letters, A, T, G, is going to make an amino acid, which is you put a bunch of those together and you have a protein. Right? So those go to, just go like this. I don't have to write it because I'm not a very good writer. To proteins. They're large molecules. They're very, very big. In fact, they're so big that a lot of their function has to do with how they fold upon themselves and the shape that they take. So shape is huge with these things. Shape and form. And the sequence. But that's later for the next chapter. All right. So DNA is going to send a message to make proteins. And these proteins are, one of their jobs is to send signals and to communicate. Let's talk about those. One important type of communication signal is a hormone. Now these ones, you've all heard about hormones. They send signals to distant organs. So far away they can send signals to make the organs secrete something or to change the metabolic rate. Now metabolism, which we'll talk about, we already talked about metabolism. That's how your body burns energy, how it makes nutrients, that kind of stuff, right? That's all the chemical activity in your body, the repair of your body. Hormones change that metabolic rate, right? These mechanisms in cell signaling are very, very complicated. So we don't need to know how it happens, we just need to know that it does happen. That's for like 3rd year in college or something, you'd start talking about that. Another really cool one is your nervous system. This thing is pretty sweet. It's most of the nerves. If you cut your hand or something where it hurts, it sends an electrical signal. It's actually an electrical impulse up your arm, over to your spine, and then into your brain, and it tells your brain it hurts. You don't actually feel it right there in your hand. You're told that it hurts. The nerves kind of go like this, and then they stop, and then they start again. Well, this electrical signal can cruise along here fine, just right along here, right? But when it gets here, it can't go any farther. So what happens is it releases neurotransmitters, which I'm trying to make little dots. There's some little dots. They go and say, hey, start another electric signal. And it does. Okay, somebody just walked in, so I got lost. I'm not sure I was. But I think we finished neurotransmitters. Let's go on to the rest of this. So mechanisms for communication between organisms include the release of chemicals, visual displays, and sounds. So besides chemicals, right, peacocks have their feathers, birds, animals make sounds, all kinds of things. Here's an example of a dog making a barking sound, right? So there's lots of different signals that they can do, especially when they're doing courtship, right? Isn't that when the peacocks have all their feathers so that they can attract a mate? And then finally, the overview of it all the different types of transfer. Make sure you know all these different ways of information transfer or have them in your notes. There's the DNA, the genetic one, chemical, electrical signals, and then all the visual chemicals and sounds. Chemicals by this one, they're probably talking also about pheromones, scents, right? Those are all chemicals that make smells. All right, good job. Get ready for this test. Bye.